Again, be sure you have your homework out to be checked. The answers will be up here. I hope all went well yesterday. Hope you are behaving. Please make sure that you are. Again, remember that you can pause this video at any time. Give students the time they need to check their answers or copy their work. Like yesterday, I've picked 3 problems from the assignment that I think you might have had difficulty with. And if you have other questions, you certainly, at the end of the instructional part today, could come up and look at the key to see where you might have made a mistake. So the first one that I picked was number 8 from last night's assignment. It's a good refresher anyway. Remember that what we're going to do is the first thing we're going to do is simplify what's there. We're going to look for those like terms, things that I can put together. Obviously, if I can simplify something, it makes sense to work with it in a simpler form. So the 3, there's nothing I can put it together with, but 6v and 3v makes 9v. The goal in any algebraic equation is to get this variable by itself. I have to get rid of this positive 3. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. A negative 6 minus 3 more, they both have the same sign. I'd keep their sign and add, would be a negative 9. And I'd bring this 9v down because these 3's would have canceled out. And the last step in this problem would be to divide both sides by 9, and v would be equal to a negative 1. Again, remember, if somebody is trying to copy, you're certainly welcome to pause this at any time. Number 12. Again, first thing that we're going to do is simplify. We're going to combine those like terms. So I'm going to take the negative 6x and the x and put it together. So 16 equals negative 6 and a positive 1x. So we're really combining a negative 6 and a plus 1, negative 5x, and then plus 1. Getting x by itself, subtract 1 from both sides. I have 15 equals a negative 5x, and divide both sides by a negative 5. And x would be equal to a negative 3. Again, I wanted to show one with the 0, combining like terms, 7x equals 0. Divide both sides by 7, so x is 0. A lot of people don't like to see 0 as an answer, but 0 is a valid number. Okay, so number 11 from today's lesson. You're going to see that we have several things that we have to do, and for the first time you're going to notice that there's a variable on the left, but there's also one on the right. The first thing we should always do is look to see, can I simplify anything? And I can see that I need to distribute on the right, and when I distribute this I want to make sure that I attach this sign. There's really nothing I can do on the left at the moment. So I have 8, a negative 5 times 4 is a negative 20. And a negative 5 times a negative 4m would be a positive 20m. I still should be looking to see if I can simplify anything, and I notice that I have like terms. So I'm going to go ahead and combine those. I have 8 take away 20, which would be a negative 12 plus 20m. If you have variables on both sides of the equation, you want to move the variable to where it is the largest. If I'm looking at this equation, I have 8m and I have 20m. 20m is bigger, so I want to find a way to get rid of this 8m. Well, the opposite of a positive 8m would be a minus 8m. And I'm going to subtract 8m from both sides of the equal sign. These m's are going to cancel out, leaving me just this 24. And 20m minus 8 would be 12m. Now I can see that I only have one m now, one group of m's left in my equation. And so I'm going to get this m by itself. I have to undo this negative 12, and I'm going to undo it by adding 12 to both sides. I now have 36 equals 12m, and I'm going to divide both sides by 12. And I get m equals 3. And again, remember, no matter how complicated this gets, that I always have the ability to plug those numbers back in and to check to see if it's correct. And you can pause this so that students can get it copied. Again, the first thing we should always look for, is there anything that can be simplified? I'm going to distribute this negative through the parentheses. A negative times a positive is a negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. And there was nothing I could really do on the right-hand side of the equal sign. There isn't anything else to simplify. M's and 1's won't go together. M's and 15 won't go together. So the next thing I'm going to do, the second thing I'm going to do, is look at my variable. And I'm going to move it to where the variable is the largest. This one looks a little different because they're both negative. But you have to ask yourself, is a negative 6m larger than a negative 8m? And negative 6 is the larger number. I'd rather owe somebody $6 than I would owe them 8. So I want to get rid of this negative 8m. And I'd get rid of it by adding 8m to both sides. And notice that I've lined the m's up with the m's. The nice thing about getting rid of it, even though these were both negative to start with, a negative 6 plus 8 becomes a positive 2m. And now I don't have to worry about this negative that was out in front of my variable, which so often people make mistakes on. Getting m by itself now, it's really much like what we've been doing the rest of the week. I can add 1 to both sides. I now would have 2m is equal to 16. And my last step would be to divide by 2. And m would be 8. And again, I want you to be able to see that at any point in time, no matter how complicated these get, that you have the ability to check them. So I'm going to go to the original equation, and any place I see an n, I'm going to replace it with the 8 that we just found. So I have a negative, parentheses, 6 times 8, plus 1, equals a negative 8 times 8, plus 15. I have a negative out in front of the parentheses. 6 times 8 is 48. 48 plus 1 is 49. Negative 8 times a positive 8 would be a negative 64 plus 15. I have a negative 49. Negative 64 plus 15 is also a negative 49, and I can see that my answer checks. Again, no matter how complicated it gets, the nice thing about algebraic equations is you can always take your solution, plug it back into the equation to see if it makes a true statement or not. Number 18. Again, we're seeing more things happening, but it's still the same process.
the first thing we will do is simplify what's there. The second thing that we're going to end up doing is moving the variable to where the variable is the largest. And then the last thing we do, obviously, is the whole goal is to isolate that variable. In other words, get the variable completely by itself. Solve. When I go to simplify number 18, I'm going to distribute this -7 through the parentheses. So I have 8x. I have a -7 times a -x, which a negative times a negative would make a positive. I have a -7 times a -7. That would also make a positive, and that would be a positive 49. Although I've started the process of simplifying, I'm not completely done simplifying because I do have some like terms that can be put together. 8x and 7x is 15x plus 49 equals 6x plus 40. Again, I would look to see where my variable is the largest when they're on both sides like this. 15x is larger than 6x, so I want to get rid of this 6x. And you'll notice I'm going to subtract it so that it goes away. And when I go to subtract it, I got to subtract it from the other side, and I line it straight up with the x's that are half. 15x take away 6x would be 9x plus 49 equals 40. My next step would be to get this x by itself to isolate it. I'm going to subtract 49 from both sides. 9x is going to be equal to a -9. And my last step is going to be to divide both sides by 9. And you'd find that x is equal to a -1. Again, remember at any time you can pause this so that you have time to copy it down. Your assignment today is to do numbers 1 through 10 on the worksheet today. I've done 3 from the bottom section, and you're going to do the top 10. Again, make sure that you're behaving. Have a good day. Work hard. Work smart. Make sure you're showing your work.